This is Trigger Point, episode 14. My name's Serena, and sitting across from me is my co-host Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hi, everyone.
So, we have been very busy in many different ways. Both of us have been very busy.
Yeah, no, it's one of those like sometimes we'll go for like a month and they'll be like, oh, what happened here? It's like, oh, not much, you know. It's
Well,
just
for you.
Yeah. And then suddenly, like this one, it's like, oh, no, I did so many things. I've got so many new things to talk about. And it's just like, oh, wow, like I didn't realize that suddenly I've got X amount of things I have to talk about.
Yeah, because we were looking at our show notes and we were looking at because we had a part, like one section of our show would be about what happened between our last show and this show. And then the rest of the episode would be about our chosen topic. And that first section is pretty long this month.
Yeah, usually it's like, 5 lines maybe.
If even. There's actually one thing we haven't put in this show note, and I think we need to mention that really early on, that we should say first, is that this episode, which we originally said was going to be about
the Expanse. Yeah, I need to apologize to everyone since that this is my fault. Yes, we did say we were going to do the Expanse. And obviously, from hearing this, you know that we're not going to do the Expanse. The main reason being I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah. Well, okay, it's not entirely
my fault. For some unknown reason, my Netflix app
on his TV,
on our TV, always crashes when I try to watch The Expanse. And it's only The Expanse. Nothing else seems to crash. Everything else I watch on Netflix seems fine. Every time I go into Expanse, it loads and then it jumps out of the app every single time.
I don't know whether it sounds like this to anyone else, but to me it actually sounds like my dog ate my homework kind of excuse. It's like, but it doesn't do it for any other show. It only does it for The Expanse.
Did I show you though? When I was
you haven't shown me.
I will show you. I will prove that it is not a dog ate my homework excuse. It is completely true. I have no idea why. As like, for some unknown reason, it just doesn't like that show on my TV.
Yeah, so Peter decided he's not going to watch The Expanse. And then instead he sends me a message like about less than a week ago, like 4 days ago, 6 days ago. Yeah. He sends me an SMS and he's like, hey, you know how you hated the last 5 years, the album for the last 5 years musical?
There's a production of it. Do you want to come watch it with me? Initially, I was actually expecting Serena to go like, "Hell no! I hated that musical. I'm not going to go watch it." But then she was like, "Yes, I really want to go because I want to know how."
Yeah, okay. Because I don't know whether we've cut it out from previous shows or not. I can't remember how I edited previous shows. Yeah. Peter recommended a couple of musicals to me.
One of them being the last 5 years.
Yeah, but like there's no shows. There weren't any shows in Melbourne for these musicals. It's just that he recommended the albums to me and said, just listen to the songs and you'll be able to figure out the show. Especially the last 5 years, because there's barely any dialogue at all. This is a show with two cast members and they sing about their relationship in opposite directions. Like one character, the female character, will be talking about from the moment that they broke up and then singing backwards through the timeline to when they meet up, when they first met, kind of thing.
And then
when the guy sings from the other side, like, the first song he sings is about how he met this girl and fell in love, and then he will sing about how their relationship deteriorates.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting idea. When he first told me about it, when Peter first told me about it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be. I have to be mentally prepared to be like heartbroken after listening to this album. So I listened to it on the way driving home, and then immediately after I sent him a message and said, I hate them both. And they both deserve what they got in the end because they never should have started this relationship to begin with. And so,
which was totally not the response I was expecting. But
yeah, and then I went and watched the movie. Right? Because Peter tells me there's a movie. Because I'm like, I listened to this album and I feel like I'm missing something. There's like a lot of holes in this story and I want to watch the movie. And I watched the movie and I still hated the two characters. And it further kind of like backed up my idea, like, yeah, they really shouldn't have gotten into a relationship to begin with. So when Peter told me that the show was on, I wanted to see what it was like on stage. because of the fact that you have two characters who exist in the same physical space, but they don't actually interact with each other. They exist on different
time frames.
in different timelines. So I wanted to see how they change scenes, how they transition between one timeline to the other, because they're both going at the same time. Like it's progressing parallel. So when Peter told me that this was going on, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I want to go and watch this. So this would be what we're talking about later in the show.
I was just going to say, it's like, you seem to already covered half of the things we're talking
Yeah, because
about.
I realized I've already started to get into that mode where I'm starting to analyze the show and was going to tell people about it. But then I realized, wait, we still have like follow-ups, and we've got stuff that happened, like what we've been doing in the past month, So, if you guys are interested in the last 5 years, we're going to make you wait for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, firstly, just the follow-up from last month.
Yes.
I sincerely apologize to anyone who have decided to read that Tale of Demons and Gods, that Chinese wuxia story.
Yeah.
And I specifically apologize to Serena for making her read it.
Oh my God. Okay, quick summary. Last month, Peter was telling me, hey, you know how there's like these martial art novels from China that we grew up with as kids. That's kind of like the whole Hidden Dragon, Hidden Tiger, Crouching... Yeah. I never remember how they say that. There are novels of that in that genre in China, and I've never been able to read it because the Chinese is too hard for me. Peter grew up reading that stuff and he loved it, and he's telling me, hey, there's a website that actually translate these novels, that translate the modern version of these novels. You should go and read it. And there's this fantastic one called Tales of Demons and Gods, and he was telling me how he read the comic of it, and then when the comic finished and he realized that the story keeps going, he goes and finds the online version of this, the web comic, the web novel. And he continued reading it, and he loved it, right? There's some flaws, some of the translation might be a little bit bad, but it's still fine, right? And I'm like, okay, he makes it sound really good, okay? About this guy who's like this martial artist. He dies fighting this demon, and then he wakes up and finds out he's 13 again, and he gets to rewrite his history. He rewrites his life and makes it, makes better choices, supposedly. And I'm like, I want to read this. So I go and look at it online. I've searched for it. The website, by the way, is terrible to navigate because apparently the first 50 chapters are not linked to the rest. It doesn't matter. You don't need to look for it because it's terrible.
It is terrible.
Look, I started reading this thinking, it's okay. It's just the translators. The book was probably written very well, and it's just badly translated, and I was like, just keep in mind this was written in Chinese and try to mentally
imagine what it would be like if it was in
Chinese. Yeah. And then I imagine what it was like in Chinese. Like, wow, this is still terrible. But this guy is like so ego. It's like a fanfic. Like, it's like the author wrote himself into. Okay, if you have ever watched any anime, and any of those animes where there's one guy and there's like a billion girls and they all love him no matter what he does, like he's just like their god. This is what it's like in this novel. Like, this guy, he's like he's a nobody, right? Like, he's back when he's 13. He's in high school. He was a loser.
Yeah.
No one cared about him, but he knows what happens in the future. He knows how to improve himself. He knows
the best way to make himself better, basically.
Yeah. Because he's already learned all the. Okay, because his body is not physically it's not strong enough to do all the stuff he did when he died, right?
Yeah.
But he has all the. He
has all the knowledge about it, so he basically starts preparing himself at a very young age now, so that he can learn those things later on.
Except he's supposedly like old and wise and stuff, except now he's back and he's just a sleazy 13-year-old who can't stop thinking about his future wife. Because
who doesn't know him here, by the way. Like, the future wife actually has no idea who this guy is.
Yeah.
She obviously doesn't care about him because, again, he's a nobody, right?
But he can't stop thinking about how she looks like when she was naked. Like, that seriously was one of the... Like... There are paragraphs and paragraphs of him saying, "Oh, you know, she doesn't look like much now, but she will. In a few years, she will bloom into the woman that I essentially slept with." Right? Like it's just. I mean, focus. You're trying to
Rewrite history here.
You're trying to save this town from being completely eradicated because that's something that happens. But no, he just has to woo this woman who's going to be his wife in the future. He has to destroy his childhood bully. He has to, he hates his teacher. So he has to embarrass her in front of everyone because by showing her up that she knows nothing. And apparently, at some time in his life, he had been stuck in a parallel universe or something where he had access to every single book ever. And he managed to memorize every single book ever. So he comes back with like intelligence that is like, you know, off the charts or whatever. It's just... He's so good at everything, supposedly. And he knows how to play with, like, the stock market kind of stuff, like, for lack of a better word, like, because he's also poor, right?
So he manipulates so that he manages to make a lot of money in a very, very short amount of time.
Because let me ask you, I mean, how many of us remember when we were 13-year-old, what was the thing that would make people rich, right? Like, okay, I understand now we know that we should have bought stocks for Apple, but... when we were 13, I highly doubt we remembered whether it was Sega or Nintendo that we should have been buying stocks in. Like, how would we remember? But this guy, he remembers when he was 13 when the market was changing.
No, to be fair, that's not really what he does. You know, in that part, I actually think he was actually quite clever. I never actually read this story. I read it as a manga. And when you're reading as a manga... a lot of these flaws are not obvious, and you skip over a lot of the things that make it really, really bad. For example, all of the descriptions about the erotic overtones of him describing the fiancé or any girl that he basically sees, they're one panel in a manga.
Yeah. They draw the girl is pretty, that's fine. Because the panel doesn't, like, focus on her boobs.
Yeah, it just shows the pretty girl and then, you know, him just staring at her. It's fine.
In admiration, and that's fine.
Because you don't hear him going on and on about
how creamy her skin.
Like,
and her boobs.
Like, they show some of it, but
and her butt.
But not all of it. So when you tone it down like that, it's not obvious that there's so much issues with how much he focuses on it.
I had so much joy copying and pasting all these like these passages and like sending them to Peter. I'm like, Peter, this is what you're making me read. Like he accidentally brushes her boobs. Like I'm like, what is going on? Like Peter, what are you making me read here?
When Sarita said it to me, I'm like, what do you mean? Obviously, because I never read it, right? I was like, what do you mean? And then I looked at the passages and I'm like, oh my god, don't tell me that was in it. And she's like, yeah.
And that's not the worst part. Like there are so many in this book.
And I'm just like, oh god, I am so sorry.
Like, and it doesn't help. Like all these girls are falling in love with him, even though he's a creep, right? You know how I said that he is in love with a woman who will later be, like he's in love with a girl because they're like 13. He's in love with a girl who will be his wife. Later on. And so he's seen her naked and he actually tells her. And he tells her and her boyfriend at that time. Like, not yeah. He tells her and her boyfriend at that time, well, I know about her birthmark that is in a certain part of her body that you've never seen before. The boyfriend, of course, is enraged because he's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right? Why would you know my girlfriend's body
so intimately.
Yeah, and the girl's like, "What the hell? Have you been watching me?
Have you been perving on me while I shower?"
And
she says that, did you
and did you perv on me when I was having a bath? She says that, and you would think, in any normal situations, the girl would not give him the time of day ever, and in her mind, he will be a creep forever. Except, no, he'll be like, I don't know how he knows about my birthmark, but I think I'm falling in love with him. It's like, girl, no, don't do that. That's not.
That's not okay.
God, that's
That
not
is
okay.
not okay at all.
And so that was what I had to read.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it. I couldn't finish it.
Oh no. God no.
I felt like I should because I don't know. The idea was interesting.
Like the concept, and that's the thing with the manga. You there's a lot more of the idea of him going back and changing history, and so there was a lot less of him being a jerk.
Yes.
Which unfortunately that is the whole story. He is always being a jerk.
Because he knows more than anyone else,
Yeah.
and he blames everyone else for not knowing what he knows.
Yeah.
Because not everyone else get to go back and do it again. But
He's not a good character.
no, and you're
But
in
again-
his head all the time.
And see, with the manga, you're not. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
see, you don't hear his thoughts all the way. You hear some of it, and when he does come out, you go, "Oh, he's just being him again." But in the manga, because you don't hear him constantly, it's not as grating. When I reread it, because Serena told me how awful it was, I was like, "Oh, seriously?" I had to reread some of it, and so I did, and God, it was awful. You're constantly in his head. You're constantly hearing him, and it grates on you because there's no letting off.
There's no escape.
There's no escape from it. So yeah. So if for those who were thinking of reading it for whatever reason,
Don't. Just
Yeah.
don't.
If you have to read the or know the story, read the manga. At least that's less, grating.
Yeah.
And it's,
And there's so much angst because every woman loves him.
yeah. And that's the thing though, like it must be really popular in China though, because they've got, not only do they have a manga of it, they've got a animated series of it.
Yeah, but they, as you said, they change it, right?
Oh, they changed the so it's not like the anime and that's just made into animation. No, it's a completely revamped
I
animation.
understand, but what I meant is like these people read the story and they're like, "Oh, I like the idea of it. He's
no,
a jerk."
no.
That's-
It still follows the exact same story.
No, I know, but just like how you said in the comic, they don't focus on the fact of him
Yeah,
like
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at her boob.
Yeah,
They do
yeah.
tone down that stuff.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
they
yeah.
make it less about how he's so good, he's so mighty, and make it a little.
Well, he's still so good and mighty, but there's a lot less of the erotic overtones, at least in it, which already helps a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, just so in short, please do not read it, and I apologize again sincerely for everyone who did. Because I said it was good, I completely take that back. I admit I was completely wrong on that.
Which made me less likely to read anything else on that website. By the way,
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
because
because
it's just like, wow, if this is
if this is the best one they have,
I know, right?
that's
And-
a problem.
But I don't get it. Like, in China, these seems to be really popular right now. But then again, that Chinese drama that I got you to watch, which you hated as well, that was apparently also really popular. So I don't know. Maybe it's
There's
just
no
us.
accounting for taste. Let's say it that way.
Maybe it's just we're just not in that culture anymore. Really.
Why don't you tell me about your midlife schoolies week?
Yeah, right. So, did I mention last time that I finished? I don't think.
Yeah, you told people you finished.
Oh, yeah. So I haven't graduated yet, but I finished my Juris Doctor course finally after 6 years of part-time studying, and I decided, you know what, I really deserve a break, and I deserve a relaxing, enjoyable time just for myself. So
Which is what every Year 12 student thinks after,
yeah, Year 12, right? In saying that, because I actually never did schoolies in Year 12.
Yeah.
And didn't even realize it was a thing until people started talking about it. And I was like, oh, I've already had plans, so didn't do it. So I decided, you know what, I'll do my schoolies now instead.
Oh, okay. I think we need to explain to our international listeners what schoolie week means in
probably.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know whether Sydney-siders think the same thing. This is just purely Melburnian, Victorian thing.
Yeah.
After you graduate from Year 12, you will get together with a group of friends and you will fly up to Queensland for a week.
Yep. because obviously Queensland is nice and warm, and
Yeah, and there's beaches,
Beaches.
and there's like theme parks, and there's underage clubs. Although you probably hope not to go there when you're year 12. Like
Yeah.
you know, you'll be 18,
yeah, so
hopefully.
you can go to actual clubs then.
yeah, and you go clubbing. You go, you know, with no supervision from your parents.
Well,
obviously,
exactly.
yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like you basically go with a bunch of friends and basically get pissed and party like hell.
Can I tell you that in my schooly weeks, we went up and all prepared to go clubbing and stuff, and we realized one of the people we went with
was not
not 18 yet. And so we couldn't go to any clubs at all. And we were really pissed off at that guy for not telling us earlier on, because we wouldn't have, I don't think we would have gone up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when you're 18, you're like, I'm not going to a under 16,
Club?
like a 16-year-old club. Like that's just no.
wrong.
Yeah.
It's like I don't have to.
But anyway, so you went up there for a week.
Yeah. So I decided to treat myself for a holiday, and literally out of the blue, I just said, you know what, I'm going to
Yeah, because he didn't tell any of us at all. Because I was like, hey, Peter, should we be recording this week? And he's like, oh, probably when I get back. I'm like, get back from where?
It's like,
Queensland?
yeah. I'm at Port Douglas right now. Yeah. So I went to Port Douglas for a week. Well, 5 days. And yeah, it was awesome. Just, you know, got to relax, sit. Well, actually, I don't even know if I actually really enjoyed that part of it. I always, in my head, I always think like when you're going on these trips by yourself and you're sitting next to the pool drinking cocktails, and in my head, it's a really great idea. In reality, I don't think I'm one of those people that actually enjoy it. Because after the first hour, I'm like, I'm really bored. I have nothing to do.
I know that I'm not that kind of person. Like, you put me into a resort, sitting by the pool is not something I find
It's
enjoyable.
the idea that I really enjoy.
Why? You're sitting next to the pool, you're smelling chlorine. Or if you're in the pool, like people who are in the pool drinking, like, you know, a martini, I don't know, drinking a cocktail, be like, you got pool water in your drink, and pool water is like 10% urine. Yeah. Like, why would you want to do
anyway?
that?
So yeah, it's the idea that I really enjoyed, and I've finally came to, you know, accept the fact that I actually don't enjoy doing something like that. So the very next day, I decided I'm going to go and do something instead. So I went and well, one of the reasons why I went to Port Douglas was because I really wanted to see the Great Barrier Reef.
Is that close enough?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. My geography is terrible.
That's beyond terrible.
Yeah,
Serena.
don't
It's
worry.
like, do you know how large the Great Barrier Reef is?
Yeah, no.
Pretty much the whole Queensland, like all of Queensland.
Yeah, but the good part to go is not.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so usually there's two parts that people go to see the Great Barrier Reef. One is Port Douglas. The other one is Whitsunday.
Yep.
Anyway, so I went to Port Douglas and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and look at the Great Barrier Reef. Just
Stick your head under the water and you'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. Initially, I was just gonna go snorkeling.
Yep.
But then I was like, I was talking to the concierge, and they were like, "Oh, if you really want to go see the Great Barrier Reef, you really have to do the diving, scuba diving, to really appreciate it."
Yep,
and I was like, "Yeah, that diving is not something that I really would consider myself to do, because the idea of being, you know, underwater and relying solely on this breathing apparatus to keep me alive is not one of those things that sits very comfortable with me, and the idea that, you know, if anything happens, I can drown. Yeah. Anyway,
Hey, I completely understand. I mean, like, we'll talk about that PlayStation 4 thing
in a
later.
second,
But
yeah. But regardless of the fact, I decided, you know what, you only live once. Let's just do it.
Oh, okay.
So I went and booked a scuba diving trip to the Great Barrier Reef.
You don't need any preparation to do that? Like, no license, no nothing?
No.
They'll take
They'll take care of
Okay.
you, because it's the introductory dive that you do, right?
Yep, okay.
And so we got there, got everything ready, and the first 5 minutes was quite unnerving,
Okay.
because because they basically teach you the basics of, what happens if your mouthpiece goes away, and how do you
Essentially, they scare the crap out of you.
yeah, but it's basically saying that this is how you save yourself if anything happens. This is what you need to do. Important, but kind of like, oh God.
Kind of like the first day I went to LA and I turn on the TV and they say, this is what you do if there's an earthquake. Like,
yeah, great. And then, but got through all of that. That was fine. Started doing the descent.
Yep.
Excuse me. Started doing the descent. And once you get down into the Great Barrier Reef, once you're actually looking at the reef itself and you're paying attention to all the wildlife in the reef, you forget about the fact that you're actually diving. You forget, like, for me, I forgot that I was breathing through this mouthpiece, and that was the only thing that's keeping me alive. Like, everything was so beautiful down there.
Yeah.
You just mentally just transport it into a different world, and for me, like, it was a great experience. Like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was so amazing. And I never thought I would say this, but I was like, oh, this is a really great thing to do, and I'm so glad I did it. And obviously, because it's an introductory dive, you always have to be holding on to the instructor. So basically, he's the one that's basically taking you around, and you just kind of, flip.
You just kick your legs.
You just kick your legs and just follow wherever he's going. But you're constantly looking at everything, and the 20 minutes is over within, 20 minutes, but like, but yeah.
Yes, that's the basic.
I guess it's a dive, right? No, but like, it's over like really quickly. Like, you don't realize how fast time passes when you're like enjoying yourself. So I only initially signed up for one dive.
Oh, okay.
So we went back up, and they were like, "Oh, if you want to do for another dive, you can pay extra and you can do it." And I was like, "Yep, sign me up."
That's a great way of making money.
Sign me up straight away. I'm going again. In saying that, we had 8 of us who were first-time divers.
Yeah.
Only 5 of us managed to do it. 2 people pulled out straight away. Before they even got into the water. The 2 people were like, "Actually, I can't do it."
They freaked out.
And they didn't. Okay. One other lady, she really tried very hard to try and do it, but as soon as she had the mask over her head and she put the mouthpiece, she freaked out. She couldn't do it.
Right.
Like, you could see she was trying so hard, but she just couldn't. And yeah. And
that's annoying.
That's really annoying.
Yeah.
So she also didn't do it. So those 3 people didn't do it. Of the 5 who went on the first dive, only me and another guy did the second dive.
Oh, okay.
So in saying how much I enjoyed it, I can tell that a lot of people probably didn't enjoy it.
So what? They waited in the boat for you guys?
Oh no! So apart from diving, you can go snorkeling.
Oh, okay.
So the people who didn't go diving just did snorkeling and just or just stayed on a boat and just did other stuff. But yeah, I was so. It was such an enjoyable experience for me. As soon as I finished my second dive, they were like, "Oh, tonight we're having an extra session because tonight we're probably going to see the coral spawn."
Oh.
And that only happens once a year. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And then they say, unfortunately, first-time divers probably shouldn't because it's dark and you probably need a lot more experience to do it. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And so the first thing I did when I went back to the hotel, I was like looking up, how do I get myself certified as a diver?
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I was like, yeah. And so I'm contemplating on getting a diving license so that I can do diving. Well, the other thing is because if I get a diving license, I can do diving myself. I don't have to hold on to someone. I can actually look at stuff, explore myself. So I was like, do I want to? I was like, it was really fun. But in saying that, the first 5 minutes of my second dive was equally as unnerving. Okay. So it wasn't as if, like, at the end of the day, it isn't an unnerving experience for me.
Yep.
It's only until I get down and actually start looking at stuff that I can kind of relax.
Yep.
That first 5 minutes is still a bit like, oh my God. Anyway. But yeah, so that was my trip to Port Douglas, and it was great. Loved every minute of it, and I got to see cane toad racing.
Cane toad racing.
Yeah, right. There's this particular bar. If everyone ever go to Port Douglas, definitely go to the bar. I think it's called the Iron Bar. Yeah. Anyway, you'll find it's the only. If you ask anyone in Port Douglas about cane toad racing, they'll point you to the right place. I won't say how the cane toad racing works, but it's just funny.
Okay, would I be offended when I go and watch it? Because I don't like seeing animals in distress.
They're cane toads, Serena.
That doesn't mean anything. Like, I was going up my driveway, like my car was going up driveway the other night, and I stopped because my headlight saw something on the ground. I went out of the car and saw there was a snail, like, slowly crossing my driveway, and I'm like, I can't wait for you to cross. And you're taking your time. So I picked it up and just took it to the grass on the other side and put it down, and I drove up.
Look, I don't think they're distressed. They don't seem distressed to me anyway, but it's funny.
Okay.
It's funny. I would recommend people just to go watch it just for the lulls. Just say for the fact that you can say I went to and see the cane toad racing. Oh, the funniest thing is because the day I went was the week that I went was the week that Melbourne Cup was on. And so I deliberately also got away from the Melbourne Cup because I didn't want to be down here. I
wasn't anywhere near any of the Melbourne Cup stuff.
Yeah. So when we were there, the guy was like, and now for the race that stops the nations. We're doing cane toad racing. I'm like, yes! It's much better than watching other races.
Hey. No, you can't complain about Melbourne Cup, okay? That's just no. As a Melburnian, you should not be complaining about the Melbourne Cup.
I will complain about the Melbourne Cup as much as I like.
We get public holiday from that.
Do you know what the poor horses have to go through?
Yeah, there's that.
Exactly.
I don't watch the cup. I don't. The horses have nothing to do with it. It's just a holiday for me.
Anyway, so that's one thing that I did, which is my holiday. So yeah. Okay. Next thing.
Okay, I just noticed the time and we got a lot more to go. So we will go through this really quickly. Okay, so I'll just lump a few of the things together that I think they are related. I pre-ordered an iPhone 10 because...
Of course you did.
Well, no, I actually got my iPhone 10 by now. I was one of those people who got it on first day. Yay, launch day.
Woohoo.
Yeah, Peter doesn't care because he's one of those people who has like a little red icon over his app, like his Apple App Store, and it says 98 the last time I saw it. He has 98 apps that he has not updated. He is running on iOS 9. Like, I don't even want to talk about it. So that's why I annoyed him by recording multiple Animoji messages and sending them to him. And I introduced him to this thing called Animoji Karaoke. And
Why, Serena? Why?
It is one of the bright lights of Twitter right now.
It is one of the... If that's the bright light... Oh, God. No.
You haven't been on Twitter. That tells you something.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Which also links to the fact that I've been trying out a thing called Mastodon. I just realized how bad it sounds, the name, when said out loud. Mastodon, as in the elephant. There's a service called Mastodon that people are now trying to use as an alternative to Twitter. I was going to go on a rant about that, but we really don't have time for that right now.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting thing for me to try. I'm still trying that out. We are both doing NaNoWriMo.
Kind of.
I'm not giving up so far, but I pretty much know that I'm not going to pass the 50,000 word mark. Like, I'll be happy if I get past the 20,000 word mark. This week has been terrible. I don't think I've written a word this whole week. I went and watched the Justice League.
Yeah.
Terrible movie, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, terrible movie.
God.
Yeah, that's just not... Yeah.
Okay. We won't even mention him anymore.
Yeah. There is... I went and watched the... Melbourne has the pop-up Globe Theatre. They're doing a series of, like, Shakespeare... like actual Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I went and watched the As You Like It, and there's different seating arrangements, and I decided not to get any of the seats. I was going to be one of the plebes and stand in front of the stage, and they try to make it as immersive and interactive. Like, they will talk to you. Like, sometimes they will talk to you. Sometimes they will spray water on you. There is this one character who decides to vomit on people. Like, it just like spit and stuff. It's just disgusting.
Oh, God.
But considering how I was never the person that was chosen or was sprayed, it was fun. It was funny. The thing is, I would recommend people who are interested to go and watch it to reread the play first before going there. They try to make it as accessible as they can. Like, their facial features, their body language and stuff does get the message across, even if you don't understand the language too well. Like, it's not normal English, right?
Yeah.
It's Shakespearean English.
Yeah.
So you might want to read the script again, like read the play, just to remember, just to have an understanding of what the stuff is about. Because the As You Like It, the play I watched was As You Like It, where the entire crew, the entire cast, are male. Like, they're all male actors. Even the female characters are
played by males.
Played by guys. And they do a really good job of it. Like, they're sassy, they shake, and it was really good. And I was able to suspend my disbelief for a while, and it was just a very enjoyable romp. So those were my things really quickly. There was one last one, and I'm leaving this to the end. I got a tattoo, and that's that.
How did it feel, Serena, getting the tattoo?
It hurt. It hurt a lot. It hurt so much. Anyone who told me that it was like soothing and that they fell asleep while doing it can go to hell.
looking at somewhere in particular.
There are some people. And then the people who tell me it feels like a rubber band. No, I could kill you too. Because I could tell you it felt like a saw going across my nerve endings.
Constantly. Repeatedly.
Yeah, but I did manage to keep my arm completely still, and I have this, it's on my wrist, and I have this really pretty, very beautiful colored tattoo, because of course if I'm going to have my first tattoo, I'm going to go all for it. Not a tiny little post stamp of a tattoo. I'm going to get this huge ass tattoo across my wrist. It's and in color, multiple colors, not just one, of a jellyfish, and not just down my arm. It has to go wrapped around my wrist, so my wrist had to turn while the tattoo is getting done. So I decided to make the experience as painful as possible for myself. So yay, 2 thumbs up.
Obviously.
So,
but yeah,
So Peter gets a midlife schoolies week. I get a midlife tattoo. That's just
how we roll.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
It's what we do.
I would never get a tattoo myself. But yeah, I like tattoos in the sense that I like looking at tattoos. I just find the very thought of having something etched on me forever just...
It's not forever. If you make it light enough, it will go away. If you don't like it, you can always get it lasered off.
Yeah, because that's going to be so soothing as well.
Well, apparently, if you get it done properly by a doctor, they actually do like the whole...
anesthetic?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Mine went blank.
Right, okay. But no, just no. That's not something that I would ever consider doing. But are you considering getting another one, Serena?
If enough time passes and I forget how much pain I was in, then yes. There's a couple of ways to answer this. I have already thought about what my next design would be. The problem here is a tattoo. If you only have one of it, it's special to you and to other people, because it's like, you either like this design a lot, or you thought about it a lot to have this tattoo. I feel like the moment you get a second one or a third one or something, it all loses meaning. Yeah, everything is just like, so you like tattoos, and you have tattoos all over your body.
Yeah,
like you're not going to go and look. Sure, you can. Sometimes you go to a person with sleeves, like full tattoo sleeves, and you're like, that's really cool. Oh, that part's really cool. Oh, that part's really cool. But generally, when you look at it, it's just, he's got sleeves. That's it.
Yeah.
When a person only has one tattoo that's visible, it's more impactful. I think.
Yeah. Well, I guess, one of the things that doesn't really apply to us here. It's like, luckily we're not living in Japan.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Although my design doesn't look anything like
No,
a
but there
Yakuza
is
tattoo,
there
right.
is a blanket ban on especially in like the sauna. I mean the onsens and stuff. So
Yeah. Although I've heard there's some onsen that.
Well, yeah. But then again, do you want to go to those onsens because those ones that specifically allow people to to have tattoos are probably not the ones that you want to go to.
Why not? It's an experience. I'll go there and I'll be like, oh, cool tattoo. What does it mean when you have like a black widow spider on your back and you're a lady? Like, how many husbands did you kill? I didn't mean that. That sounds terrible.
That's terrible. Anyway,
Anyway, so those are my things really quickly. Now your thing.
all right.
Your thing. I've highlighted it in the show
Yeah.
notes.
So, if you guys remember last year, I did the half Tough Mudder. I did the half Mudder. This year I just decided to do the full one
Yes.
with no training because
That's how he rolls.
that's how we roll. Me and my colleagues decided after last year's half Mudder, we were like, "Oh, this is really great! It was so much fun. Let's do the full one next year, and we've got a whole year to prepare ourselves. We'll be fine."
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Me and my colleagues did not prepare at all. The four of us, one didn't even make it there in the first place. She injured herself, so she has a reason for not doing it.
Yeah.
Another.
Oh my God! Tough Mother's next week. Let me just fall down these stairs.
Another colleague, well, ex-colleague actually, she's left our office, so she's moved to a different place, but she still went with us. She was sick on the day, like not just a little bit sick, but she was, quite congested. And considering that you need to, do a lot of running, a lot of strenuous.
Do you know why they make you sign waivers before you join Tough Mother?
And going, diving into like ice cold water and stuff like that. She didn't finish it, obviously.
Oh, okay,
So,
right.
Yeah, she had to be taken by an ambulance.
Oh my God!
Yeah, right.
I don't even know what to say about that. Well, it's people like you that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, do not do. Kids, do not do this at home.
Yeah, please. If you did not train and if you're sick, please don't do the Tough Mudder. It is not a good idea. You will injure yourself or worse. And so yeah. So there was only me and my other friend who did it, and I kind of ran off ahead. So we did by ourselves really at the end because I didn't wait for them because they were really slow.
You're terrible.
I am a terrible person, I know.
I would now know that if I ever am in need, like if we're running away from, I don't know, monsters or mobsters or whatever.
Yeah. I'll be the first one to throw you at them, so I can save
So
myself.
not only do you flee first, you're probably gonna hamstring me so that.
Yeah, exactly.
Good to know.
Good to know, right?
Good to know.
Anyway, so I did the Tough Mudder, full Tough Mudder, 18Ks, 20-something obstacles. It was excruciating. My first, I ran for most of it, but by the time I got to, I think, the 14, 15K mark, my knees gave out.
Oh.
I couldn't run. I could barely stand up properly, and I had to basically just waddle. I was not even walking, I was waddling that last 3Ks.
Oh my God.
God, that was the most excruciating pain ever. Never want to do that again. But I finished it. I completed it. I got my t-shirt saying I've completed the Tough
How long
Mudder.
did that take you?
Not as long as I thought, because 4.5 hours, I think.
How long did it take your other friend?
No.
You didn't wait for him. You just went home.
No. We were in one car, so we had to wait for that. Actually, no. She didn't. She wasn't that far behind. I think maybe less than an hour, 45 minutes later.
Okay.
Yeah.
She had that car keys, didn't she?
No, the person who got taken by the ambulance had the car keys.
How did you get?
No. As in, when I said she got taken by ambulance, she just got taken to the first aid tent
Okay.
by ambulance. And
Okay.
then she was fine afterwards.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was me with my Tough Mudder. It was great. I'm never doing it again.
No, never doing it again without practice.
Yes.
I
In
have a
saying
feeling-
that, me and my friend were like, after we finished it, we were like really excited again. I was like, oh, let's do something similar next time. So we're looking at the Spartan race.
Okay, you have no sympathy for me whatsoever. Like, if you want to put yourself through that, that is all up to
Well,
you.
the thing is, like, I think the Spartan race is actually better because the Spartan race is more about the obstacles and less about the running.
Okay,
It's not
that
about.
doesn't mean anything to me. Like,
I love the obstacles were fun. You know, it's just the running part that I hated. Anyway,
yeah, you're talking to the person who can't get up the rope when we're in PE in high school. I couldn't climb that rope if my life depended on it.
Anyway, okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is I got a PS virtual.
Four.
Well, no, I got the PS4 ages ago.
Ah,
I got
right.
the PSVR, the virtual reality headset, because I was obviously it's Black Friday sale, and I was like, oh,
I have a lot of money in my wallet.
not.
It's burning a hole in my pocket. I need to spend it on something.
This is after I already spent like $2,500 on my holiday to Port Douglas and
What? Was that how much it cost?
well, it was $1,200 for flights and accommodation.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I was staying there for 5 days and I ate really nice food and
Okay.
drank with pretty much every single meal I had. So
Yeah.
after everything in total, and I had to pay for the diving.
Hey.
Huh? I had to pay for the diving stuff, and by the time that kind of brought me up to $2,500.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is about right.
It's your true for 5 days.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I decided, what's another $350 on top of my $2,500 already? So I decided to buy myself a PS4 VR.
Yeah. And then, of course, when I came into the apartment earlier today to do this recording, Peter tells me, yeah, I bought the VR and I think I might have motion sickness
I
from
know.
it.
I'm so annoyed at this. Okay, the worst thing is, I've tried the VR before. I've tried the PSVR before.
Yeah.
When PAX came, I like last year, I tried on some of the games and I
Yep.
was like, oh, that's fine. Seems to have no issues with it. Played it for like 20 or 30 minutes and was fine. I got when I bought the PSVR, it came with 2 games.
Yep.
Skyrim VR and the VR World.
Yep.
And so I started doing the VR World because that's the introduction thing
Yep.
to VR, right? And I played that. That was all fine.
Mm-hmm.
I played that for probably an hour and it was all good. So I was like, oh, this is really great. Then I decided, okay, let's go play Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Put Skyrim in. I think I lasted 15 minutes the first time
Mm-hmm.
and I had to stop. I was really, really sick afterwards.
God.
I was like, oh, this isn't good. This is not what I was expecting. Why? I had no issues with all the other games. To be fair, they're not as jarring as Skyrim because with Skyrim there's a lot more jumping around, and
Yeah.
I think that's why.
And also, Skyrim wasn't made for 3D.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and so I tried it again today. I think I played it for 20 minutes, and again I had to stop after that. I was like, oh, I hope this isn't it for me because I would be devastated if this was the case. I'm like, so yeah, I'm gonna try it out a few more times. Hopefully, it'll get better.
Hey, look, I tried out the VR a little bit when I came to Peter's apartment, and I was really impressed by some of the stuff that they were doing. Like, we're talking about like the VR World thing, like the PS World game, like little games that he was showing me. Like, it was really cool. Like, you would move and everyone's looking at you. Like the NPCs are looking at you no matter where you're moving. So they're keeping track of you. Like they do track you inside the game. There are moments where you have audio coming to you from one direction. And if you turn your head,
It
the
changes.
audio stays static in the world. Like if it's coming from in front of you and you turn your head right, then all the audio come from your goes to your left ear and nothing comes from your right ear or whatever. It does that really well, and I was really impressed by those little things.
Yeah.
And like there was a part where you had a cigar, and you put the cigar in your mouth, and then you take it out. And if you blow, like if you physically blow, like I think there's a microphone in your headset. When you blow, like smoke comes out of where your mouth is. Like, and you're like, oh, okay. Like they take those little tiny details into account. And that's really cool.
It is a very impressive hardware.
System, yeah.
It is, and it's very good. I have no faults with it. The only thing I will probably say is because if people are playing on a 4K TV, everything's really sharp. With the VR, it isn't as sharp as what you would expect. You can see pixels, and but again, that's one of those limitations that we have at the moment, and that's probably not going to change that much in the near future anyway. So, for people who are considering the VR and whether it's worth it, personally, I think it's really worth it. Even though I might have motion sickness, I still think it was worth it. Yeah.
It was cool. I mean, like the first thing Peter decided to put me on when we did the VR was he's like, "Hey, this one's really cool. Do you want to go diving?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay. I'm not really good with underwater and deep sea stuff. That'd be kind of cool." And then I see on the menu like shark encounter. No, Peter, no, like. No shark encounters. No matter how badly the CG might be, like no matter how pixelated it is, if I have a great white coming at me, I will throw the remote. Like, please not the no. So he's like, okay, we'll do the wildlife encounter. I'm like, okay, let's do the wildlife encounter. And I'm in the middle water. Oh well, actually, there was a moment where it's all just pitch dark, and there's like these little floaty like things in my vision. I'm like, okay, how long am I going to be in this pitch dark watery thing? Because like I had the earphones on, and then you have like sound of water. I'm underwater. I'm like, is something's going to jump out at me? Did he in the end choose like the shark encounter and this great white is going to come diving at me from like the middle of blackness? And then I realized I haven't pressed start.
Yeah, I told her you need to actually press X to start, and she was like, "Oh, right."
Okay, I was still on the loading screen. Okay, that's good. And I pressed it, and I'm like, oh, there's like the reef, and I'm in like this cage, the cage that they take you under the water. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then the cage starts to descend, and I'm like, okay, this is not cool. Light is up, dark is down, and I'm looking around. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. But I feel like my heart is kind of like heart rate's increasing. That's cool. That's fine. I'm still fine. There's still a lot of light, and I'm looking around. And there's coral everywhere, which is kind of cool. And then you have like rock structure around you as you're descending. So now you have rock structures above you. Not cool for me. Not cool when there's water and there's rock structure above me, because that means that I don't get as much light. Then you see like stingray-like things, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I like stingrays. Getting really close, but I still like stingrays. I've touched stingrays. That's cool. Steve Irwin died from stingrays, but that's still kind of cool because this is VR, not real life. But we're still descending. And I can't help but think of all those rides from Universal or Disneyland when things just, even if it was a stingray, will jump at you, or like, those shock scare things. I'm like, I don't like that. And I keep on thinking like the cable would break and the whole thing would start falling through the water. And Peter's like, it's fine. Nothing's going to happen. The cable's not going to break. He's talking to me through this whole thing. And I'm like, I'm glad that you're here, because it grounds me in the fact that I'm not really in the water, and we're still descending. And it's getting darker. And I look down, because the thing is, even though you're sitting in a seat, you look down and you see that, there's the cage, and you can see the bottom. It's not just nothing. Yeah. Like they've rendered that there's like the sea, right? Yeah. And it's dark. And there's water and there's dark. I'm like, okay, don't look down. Don't look down. It's fine. Look around you. And we're still descending. And it's getting darker and darker. Sure, you have like this light. Like apparently you're wearing the flashlight like thing on your head. So wherever you're looking, there's like a flashlight. But okay, if you ever tried flashlighting in water, it's not very effective, especially if there's nothing to light against. Okay, now I have rock in front of me, because there's rock walls, and there's like, fauna, like, underwater flora. And it's like, that's kind of cool. That's cool. I'm not hyperventilating at all. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This is over. It's going to be over very soon. I mean, we must be reaching the bottom now, right? I'm not looking down. This is cool. It's getting dark. It's fine. And then suddenly, like the cage, like hits against something, and the whole thing rattles. And I'm like, no, that's it.
she rips the headset off. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. And I'm like, what?
I'm done. No, it's fine. It's underwater. I'm not. No. Peter, you said nothing was gonna happen,
and nothing did happen.
The cage hit something. Like I don't want to know what it is that I hit. Like no. No.
Yeah. Yes. So I can pretty much guarantee, Serena would never join me for a diving trip.
Well, that's the thing, right? I do want to go to the Great Barrier Reef. Like
just
me and
do
Andrew.
diving then. Just
but
do
I want to
snorkeling.
see. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like snorkeling is worse than diving because at least
it is actually. I must say when I was because after my dive I can still snorkel as well because you can only dive for so long and then you have to obviously come back up, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're not diving you can go snorkeling.
Yeah.
I had so much issues with snorkeling. I couldn't snorkel for the life of me because it was really choppy as well when I was there.
Yeah.
And so the water kept on going over my my
tube
breathing
thingy,
apparatus and I kept on like I'm gonna die. Whereas with the diving, everything's enclosed. I can breathe perfectly fine with them. I was
that's what I thought.
I was just thinking maybe I should just use that and just do diving instead. I hate snorkeling.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like I was thinking, diving might be better for me. But then, with that VR experiment thing, I'm like,
yeah, if that's how you're going to be
like
in
no,
VR.
Because in my mind I was thinking, snorkeling, diving, I'm not that far from the surface. It's just I'm further down, but I'm not far from the surface.
Yeah.
But the VR made me think, wait, no, there are rock structures. You can go under rocks. It's deep. It's deeper than you think it is. When you go diving, you go down deep. And no.
Well, to be fair, if you're doing the introductory dive, you can still see the surface. You're less than 30 meters.
Yeah, 30 meters is a very long way to go when you have a great white coming out. Yeah.
That is true.
Let me just reiterate. Do not show your kids Jaws 1, 2, 3, and 4 before they're 12. It does scar them for life. Like, there was a time when I could barely have long showers because I feel like I'm underneath a waterfall and that there'll be a shark coming out from the rock wall in front of me. Like, it's not good. Water,
Sharknado.
not good. Movies like that does not help me. They do not help me at all. Like, when people tell me, pools don't have sharks. I'm like, did you not watch? Like, was it 4 whatever when the shark jumped into the pool and killed everyone? Like, did you not watch that?
Yeah.
No. Like, no. Just no. Thank you.
Okay, anyway, so that's what we've been up to, which obviously if you've been listening to this, we had a lot to say.
Yes.
And actually I had more, but I think we better go on to
you can list them in dot points.
No, that's okay. They're not.
No, list them and then I could cut it out later.
No, because I can't. Now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Anyway, okay. So, actual topic.
Yes.
Let's go to what we're going to actually talk about today, which is
the last 5 years.
Last 5 years actual musical production.
Yep.
A nod to the director, who's actually my friend from high school. So, great job, James. Well done.
Now, I would really, really want everyone to go and watch it. Unfortunately, they only had a very short run. It was only until
today or tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. I could tell you, after me and Peter finished watching it, I went home and I immediately sent out an email to a few of my colleagues who I knew were interested in this sort of thing. I'm like, you gotta go and watch this. This is really good. Now, unfortunately, that was a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So they didn't see it until Thursday, and all of these people have family commitments, and so they couldn't go and watch it. And the one person I thought would most likely go and watch it wasn't in the country. Well, yeah, she wasn't in the country. So
God damn it.
I really wanted someone to watch this so I could talk to them about. Because Peter doesn't count. I talk to him all the time anyway.
Jeez. Thanks, Serena.
I mean, you do know I tolerate you, right? So we already said what the show was about. Like, you know, it's two couples, and they kind of
one couple.
Yeah, sorry. Two individuals in a relationship, and you see the progress of their relationship from both, you know, from both sides.
Yeah. One from the start of the relationship to the end of the relationship, and one starts from the end of the relationship to the start of the relationship.
Yeah. Now, what's really interesting, and I think it's really hard to visualize. So I had to give this example. The show starts with the girl coming into her apartment, because this is a very small production. They have the stage is in the middle of the room, and the seats are arranged around it. In a way, the stage is kind of like, it goes into the audience.
Yeah.
From where we were sitting, like where me and Peter were sitting.
We had the best seats.
Oh, we had
the best seats
ever. Next to me was like an armchair with like a light kind of thing, and no one sits on that because that's actually part of the stage.
Yeah.
So you have the girl. She comes into her apartment in the center of the room, and she looks dejected, and she's holding a letter. And essentially, she starts off the show by singing about how the guy's just left her.
Yeah.
And she's talking about how it's been 5 years. Their relationship has, you know, deteriorated until the guy decided it was time to end it.
Yeah.
And she made mention of the fact that he has cheated on her too. And so by the end of the song, she had proceeded to sit on the armchair next to me and was sobbing and crying. And it was very, you can say immersive, but it was also very in your face in a way, because she was right next to me and she was crying. And like, even when she was making her way up to our seats, which was like, we were second row from like the front of this, I didn't know whether I should be looking at her in the face, because I didn't know, like, what if she looked at me? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, a normal human being, when you see someone in distress, you'd be like, are you okay? But this is part of the show, and you don't want to interrupt her performance either. Like, what, do you smile at her? Like, I didn't want to do that, right? Like, so she goes and sits in that chair, but at the same time, because I've already heard all the songs, I know what was coming. I see the guy enter, like the other actor. He enters the stage, and he's sitting at the piano, and
really joyful,
he's really happy. And you're like, oh no, this is happening. Because her song is really sad, and then suddenly it just changes tempo, and there's like this really happy kind of like jumpy music coming on, and then he's singing about how he's really happy about meeting her, and he's talking about how, you know, he's met this girl, and his mother would be crying because, like, it's not the kind of girl like I think his mother approves of. But the lines that he's singing is like, oh, you know, I'm breaking my mother's heart. Like, I could hear it cracking and splintering. And at the same time, I have this woman sitting next to me, and she's crying. Like, she's not crying loudly enough that it will detract from the show. But you can't help but think, like, those lines that he's saying right now is
mirroring exactly what she's
doing, right? He's not referring to her, but this is happening, and he's happy about meeting this girl who he's going to break her heart like in 5 years' time. And you have this thing, like, what is happening? Like, I can't jump from sad to happy so quickly. I'm like, there's multiple times in the show where I'm like, breathe. Because I didn't really remind myself to breathe. I've stopped breathing. I was like watching this. I'm like, what is going? I know what's going to happen. I've watched the whole thing. I watched the movie, but there's like, it's really in your face when you're watching this stuff. And there's moments in the show where one or the other is yelling at the other member, right? Because their relationship is breaking. And say the girl is yelling at the guy for not listening to her. Yeah. And but he is in this. He's in the scene, right? He's standing there, but he's on the phone call with his publisher, and he's happy because he's being accepted, right, to publish something. Yeah. And she's yelling at him for not listening to her. Yeah. But this is not the guy she's yelling at. She's yelling at the guy 5 years...
5 years later, right?
But he's standing right there, and he's not looking at her. But they're both there, and you're like, wow, I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah. I think the thing I'll need to just mention first is that in the movie... I didn't watch the whole movie. I watched half of it, and then my computer crapped out, so I don't know. I haven't finished watching it. Anyway,
Peter needs to treat his technology better. Like, first his Netflix dies, then his Mac dies, and his phone is like antiquated.
It's not an an antique. What are you talking about? Anyway.
It's
So,
not an antique because you lost it. You lost the original one and you had to buy a replacement.
quiet, Serena. Getting back to it. In the movie, the movie shows both of them in the same scenes, but they are both in the same timeline. So when he's yelling at her or when she's screaming at him, they're reacting to exactly what they should be reacting
Yeah,
to.
they're both in the scene,
Yeah.
but they're both in the same timeline.
Yeah.
So when someone's when the guy's yelling at the girl for not listening to him, because that happens as well, she is not listening to him, and she is furious at him for something, and that's why she's doing that.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing the whole scene, and you're seeing the reality of what's happening. You see them yelling at each other. You see the argument that they're having.
Yeah.
Whereas in the
Production.
yeah, on the
of
stage
it.
show, because you're only seeing one half of the conversation, one half of the argument, you can't help but think that I'm not getting the full story here. I'm giving the other person the benefit of the doubt. No
Yeah.
matter it's a girl or the guy,
Yeah.
you give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, you always think maybe it's not as bad as they're making it to be. You're kind of feeling, is it really that bad? Like, is he really not listening to you? Maybe. And because you're seeing the other person really happy, right?
Yeah.
You can't help but think that can't be the same person you're talking about. Like,
Well, you can't help but think, well, there was a moment when they did love you.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you get reminded constantly
Yeah.
that you see how happy he was? He was really happy with
Yeah.
you. Like, he was really in love with you.
Yeah.
Or, like, she was really hopeful about this relationship when
Yeah.
when you guys first started. So no matter how dejected you are 5 years later, there was a time
Yeah.
when they were in love with you. Whereas when you watch the movie, it's a scene. Like, they cut scene, right? Like, the first scene is she's unhappy. The second scene is he's happy and she's happy as well.
Yeah.
So you're fully immersive in that moment. Which means you forget how happy or sad the other person was.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like in the production, what really made it work was having that juxtaposition of that clashing of emotions, because it makes it so much harder. It makes it so much more gripping on you as an audience to kind of like,
Like, no matter how happy you are in this scene, you will be constantly reminded that, no, this doesn't end
work.
well.
Yeah,
right?
There was one that very first scene which you were saying, when she comes over to the chair and she starts like crying softly, and then he comes in and sings his
How
really
happy,
happy
yeah.
song. How happy is that? I liked how when we were talking about it straight after the show, you were saying you were looking at him and seeing how happy he was and hearing her
crying.
sob.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing. I was constantly looking at her and seeing how sad and how dejected she looked, and I have this really happy song playing in the background, and I'm just like, this isn't right. Like, this is not right. And I think that's what made the show so great.
Yeah.
It's because you constantly run that's like, this is not right. Why? And why am I feeling like this? I'm constantly torn between really happy, but I can't, because I'm seeing this poor girl just bawling her eyes out, and I'm just like,
But at the same time, like, I noticed that when the scene is bad, when the scene is good, they remind you that there's this this sadness that's going to happen, right? But when the scene is bad, they don't have the happy.
Yeah.
They don't have the guys. You don't have the girl skipping around the apartment when the guy is yelling at her.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't acknowledge him, and she might be cleaning the house, and she might be slightly hopeful. At the end, there was that part where right, he's saying all this stuff about how, sorry, or like he has to say bye or whatever, and she's happy. But they don't put it in your face as much as the other way around. Now, in saying that, we're saying that neither of the characters interact with each other. But as you get to the middle of the show, they're closer and closer to each other in time. And so when you get to the midpoint of the show, this is the moment where they get engaged, where he proposes to her, and then when they get married. And this is the moment when you see them slowly start to see each other on stage, right? Because that scene starts off with both of them looking in the same direction, sitting on the same couch, but they're not entirely in sync yet, because the scene starts with him talking, and you can hear his half of the conversation. There's no one talking back to him. He's answering questions, and then he starts off the song. Essentially, he's asking her to marry him. and then she's not responding. Like she's not singing anything back,
Like
right?
she's there, but she's not actually
yeah.
responding. Yeah.
And then as the song progresses, she starts to look at him. And then she starts to sing, and she essentially says that she will marry him.
Yeah.
And his face transforms, and he's so happy. Now, this point, I don't see her face because her back is to us, because this is a 360 stage. So
Yeah.
there are moments where you don't see everything.
Yeah.
But it's fine, because our seats were fantastic.
Yeah.
We saw most of it.
Yeah.
I felt bad for the people who were sitting directly opposite to us, because I
Yeah.
felt like there was a lot of scenes that they would just be seeing the back of their heads.
Yeah.
Can't help but feel like, eh. But anyway, so this scene, you see the joy suffuse his face, and you're like, oh, this is so happy. Like, they're so good.
This
It
is
was
the
like
moment.
Roman.
It's like,
And like for a moment, I'm like, don't think any further than this point. They're so happy together, and they sing together. They're in sync. They're singing as a duet.
Yeah.
They're dancing together, like as if it's the first dance in their at their
Relationship,
wedding.
Yeah.
And then they're still touching each other. And then slowly, you see them physically, like they separate. They're
Yeah.
still touching each other in the arm,
Yeah.
but they're no longer looking at each other.
Yeah.
They're looking on opposite sides of the stage.
Yeah.
And then their arm slips away from each other.
Yeah.
And then the guy takes a wedding ring from his from his pocket, and he puts it on his hand. At the same time, she takes off her wedding ring. And his face starts to change. His expression changes to slightly sad, or like slightly just less happy than it was before.
Yeah.
And her face kind of becomes more hopeful
Yeah.
and like more happy. And that moment, I was like, oh.
This is the
Shit.
part where it goes down.
Like, this is the moment where, you know, that phrase, like the two ships passing
Yeah.
in the storm, like in the fog, kind of like
Yeah.
in the night. This is the moment where you see them kind of bypass each other, and you see that they're heading off in different directions again. Like, she's going to go further back in history,
Yeah.
and he's going to head downhill,
Yeah.
like in their relationship. And you're like, oh, that hurts.
And then she starts responding to his initial
Yeah, and
questions
then-
at the
yeah,
start,
yeah.
and then she
Yeah,
sings
like
the
the-
responses.
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah. Like the song ends with her half of the conversation. Yeah. And that was like perfect. And then he immediately launches into a song about how after you're married,
Yeah.
suddenly you're surrounded by women who
throws
you want to
himself at you.
sleep with. And you're like, oh, that's not good.
yeah.
That's not good at all. And then, like, you know, then the rest of the show goes, and you're like, ah.
But yeah, that moment where they go from not in sync, like totally out of sync, right?
Yeah.
Slowly, as the show progresses, they're slowly becoming more in sync until that moment where they are totally in sync, and you're like, this is the moment I want to just, you know, capture and just freeze.
Yeah.
But then it passes.
They keep moving. They keep moving.
and then
you're
you're just like, no, why? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, oh man, that was brutal. And then not the worst part. Like, not the worst part. That was that was pretty bad. Okay, that was really bad. Like the moment when they swapped rings, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that was.
It was actually a really, really nice touch that he puts on his ring,
Yeah.
and then she takes off her
her
ring because she was married. Now she's
Yeah,
now
yeah.
she's going to put that she wasn't married, right? And so, but yeah, that moment, I
that was
just like, oh,
that was beautiful. Like, I mean, oh man, this is
as
like,
again, props to my friend for doing a great directions on that.
yeah. Oh man, that was fantastic. I mean, those are the moments you cannot show in the movie, right? When they're both in the scene and you're like, oh yeah, he's asked her to marry him, and she says yes, and then you see them get married. You're like, yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah.
You don't see the whole passing. You don't
Yeah.
see them both progress to the other half of the show. Where
Yeah.
you're like, this is the second half of the show, and you know you
Yeah.
don't get that. But oh man, so okay. So the show continues. He gets less and less happy with her. He gets less and less happy or satisfied with the relationship.
Yeah.
She's getting more and more happy because, like, you know,
She's
reversing
now-
back.
yeah.
Until the last song, when she is like, well, the second last song, she sings about how, oh, it's the end of their first date, and she's really happy. Like, oh, you're the guy I've been waiting for my whole life. Now we have to say goodbye after our first date, and I can't wait
to
until I
see
see
you
you again. Yeah, and like, so she's singing, oh, goodbye,
Yeah.
right? I'll
Goodbye
see you
until tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah,
see
yeah.
you tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. And then, like, her song pauses for a little bit. And at the same time that she's saying, like, oh, how happy she is, he is slowly entering the scene, and he's shuffling he's very slow. He's
Yeah.
very like dejected,
Yeah.
and he's very reluctant.
Yeah.
But he's written a letter, right? And like at least he's singing as if he's writing a letter
Yeah.
about how he's packed his clothes.
Yeah.
He's closed
closed
their
the
bank
bank
accounts.
accounts.
And like, you know, he made mention of the fact that they've gone and seen multiple counselors. Like, this is not another situation for
Yeah.
counselors. Neither of us are happy.
Yeah.
We need to end this now. So goodbye.
Bye. Yeah.
Right? So now he's singing goodbye, but he's singing goodbye
As in
forever,
goodbye,
right?
yeah.
And now they are singing a duet.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like the second duet in the whole show. And so she's singing goodbye, but I'll see you again. He's saying goodbye, I'll never see you again.
Yeah.
And then the last line, like, he's gone, he's walked away.
Yeah.
And she's like looking at him, and she's like, oh, she was looking at him, right?
Yeah.
Because in the movie she was, right? She's like, you know, close the gate behind you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'll see
I'll
you.
see you.
I'll be waiting for you. Like,
Yeah.
you close the gate behind you as you leave. You
Yeah.
know? I'll be waiting for you.
Yeah.
And he's saying goodbye.
Yeah.
And then he closes the door kind of thing. And you're like, oh my God. And the thing is, the strain in that song, okay, the first song that was happening, there was a strain of music that happens before her first song starts. And that strain of music is completely different to the first song that she starts with. And at the the first time you hear it on the album, you don't really think about it too much until you heard it all the way through, and you realize that last song, those last notes,
Yeah.
are the notes that starts the whole show
of her
right?
song.
And
Yeah.
you're like, this goes in circles. Like, she will. This is sad. This is, oh my God. Like, I came out of, I'm like, oh my God, this show is so fantastic. Oh, I'm so devastated. This is not good. I'm so sad.
And this was the reaction which I was expecting when I first got Serena to listen to the album. I was expecting her to be like that because when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is terrible. Why? But and then when Serena came up to me and she said, oh, they deserve to. They deserve everything they had. They were horrible, both of them. I hate both of them. And I was like, okay, that was not what I was expecting. So I was really glad that, after we finished watching it, Serena turned to me and she was like, that was really good.
Because what I've noticed...
But I'm like, now I'm devastated. I'm like, see, that's what I wanted to hear. That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Okay, because when we went home after the show, right, after I dropped you off, I put on the album and I was listening to it on the way home, and I realized that while I was watching the show, there were a lot of lines that I didn't notice while watching the show, because you have visuals.
Yeah.
And you are getting caught up in their emotions. You're getting caught up in what's happening on stage. You're getting caught up in what they're feeling.
Yeah.
So specific lines aren't registering.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're just listening to the album and you're looking at the lyrics, every line, because that's the only thing you have, right?
Yeah.
You have nothing else. So you got to build this story from just the lyrics.
Yeah.
And from just the lyrics, you can't help but think, he's entered into this relationship very prematurely, because there's a song where he's thinking that
everything's moving too fast.
Yeah, everything's moving too fast.
Yeah.
And then there's a song when she was talking about their relationship, and she was saying how essentially she's in this relationship because she thinks like things could be better.
Yeah.
Like this is
I can do better than
I can do better than what I was doing before.
Yeah.
And you're the thing that I
That's
could
coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like you're both not really, your relationship is a bit...
Didn't start off with the right intentions, probably.
Yeah, and it could have been better. You could
Yeah.
have fixed it, but then, like, her
Insecurity with her career.
job, her career was not lifting off.
Yeah.
He was like the best thing ever, and suddenly all these women are throwing themselves at him. She doesn't seem to like appreciate the things he was doing,
Yeah.
and then he kind of got sick and tired of her.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, this is just all gone to shit, and they deserved everything they got.
So it's amazing how watching the same show but in
Yep.
different formats
Yep.
can have such a different
Impact.
impact on you. And I can't say because I never really finished watching the movie, so I didn't see that medium as much. But yeah, just watching the stage show, like having those two people, and the two cast was great, by the way. They were really good. Just having that emotion, but constantly at odds with each other was really jarring for an audience. And it's kind of like, I'm constantly like torn. Like,
Yeah.
I'm constantly torn. I'm just like,
It was a
ugh.
fantastic production. I mean, props to everyone there. I think it works better because of the fact that the stage was 360 and
Yeah.
we're right in there. Because I can't help but like think about some of the... I've seen clips on YouTube of other productions,
Yeah.
and it's like a flat 2D scene,
Yeah.
like, you know, audience one
Yeah,
side,
yeah, yeah.
performance on the other. And I find like... I don't know.
Not as immersive.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like I just said, that very first scene when she comes and sit right next to us, like she was literally next to Serena.
Yeah.
Like she was literally on the seat next to Serena.
Yeah.
Like that moment where she just comes over and we can see her frail, like tears and everything.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not something you can really get from a stage production that's, you know,
Too
set
far
too
away,
far
yeah,
away.
yeah.
Like you just don't get that emotional connection,
Yeah.
right? But this one we really did because
Yeah.
we get to see everyone. We get to
Yep.
see so much of them, and it's really in like
Yeah.
next to you, and that's why I think it works really well.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I think what makes this work so well is because it is a small production and there's a small audience member, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have like this big echoing chamber,
Yeah.
right? In saying that, of course, at the same time, the problem with a small production is, look, to be completely fair, I was a bit distracted for half of the show. Because one of the audio, like one of the speakers started to crap out, and like, okay, at the start of the show, I think one of the mics were a bit dodgy. Like it was a bit crackly.
Yeah.
It was fine. It went away, but then one of the speakers on our right started to hiss, and there was a high pitched squealing, for lack of a better word. Like, it stopped working. That speaker had stopped working.
Yeah.
Now, if it was completely soundless, that would have been fine. But there was this screeching, like the static sound, like throughout the whole show. And I just wish they'd had turned off the speaker,
right?
because the speaker just stayed on. Now, this is the problem with this show, because it's an ongoing, like, there's no intermission. It's one scene immediately after the other. There's only two actors, right? So they're constantly just rotating through the scenes. There's no
time to fix it.
Yeah, no one's going on to fiddle with the speaker, because it's such a small space. Anyone who goes over to that speaker, everyone will be looking at him.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, I didn't really care. Just go and pull out a plug or something, because that sound was so annoying. And now what made it worse was that every now and then when they're singing, the sound would come back. The sound would come back, and you're like, oh, this is what it's like to have surround sound. Like, to have left and right, because currently I'm only hearing from the left, and all I'm hearing from the right is this, right? And then when the moments come when it's like really impactful, like really dramatic scenes where like there's like no sound and like there's only like a bit of talking, and then all you hear is like, zing, and you're like,
yeah,
please,
that was
please
that really
turn that
ruined
off. Like,
that really ruined it, because like there are moments when you're supposed to hear nothing. It's supposed to be silent, and you're supposed to really revel in that. Like,
you're supposed to hear a pin drop.
yeah,
You can't hear a pin drop over
when,
the...
when you've got the big static there, it's like that doesn't quite work as well. Unfortunately, it's like but yes,
I couldn't help but think like, oh, if Andrew was with us right then, I would have sent him up to like the audio box or something. Just pull a plug, pull something, stop that, please. It is so annoying.
Yeah, it didn't help that it lasted for pretty much half the show, a bit more than half the show,
It
actually.
started through like in the middle of the show and just lasted the whole way through. It didn't stop. It didn't go away at all. But apart from that, it was a really great show.
Yeah.
It was a great show.
Yeah. Unfortunately, by the time this recording comes out, the show will be over.
Yeah.
But if you do ever get the chance to see a stage production, and if it is a small stage production, we really recommend go and watch it. It's very different to watching the movie, so probably don't watch the movie. Well, I don't know.
If you're desperate enough, go and watch the movie. I mean, like, if you listen to the album, it does tell you the whole story. Listening to album.
Yeah. I mean, they don't. There isn't anything that they cut out, put it that way. But it's just very different when you have visuals to go with it.
Yeah.
I think, especially in this case, the visuals tell a lot more
Yeah.
in that sense.
Unfortunately, the movie tells you the wrong visuals, but it's still better than none, I guess, maybe. I mean, if you're a visual person.
Yeah.
Look, I will put in the show notes the link to the show, like as in the stage show that we watched, the reviews and etc. etc. I don't actually have the contact details or any way of following any of the cast or like the director. Like they don't have a group, right? They're not a formal.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I can probably find my friends'
Yeah,
details.
because it'd be great to be able to like see whether we could follow them, like see whether they have another show for anything else, because I would like to see more from them. Like it was just a really well done show.
Yeah.
So that was the last 5 years.
That was the last 5 years. So
It did feel like 5 years, this episode. We talked about it a lot. I hope people weren't bored with our description of what our life has been like for the past month. I just realized that people might just not care. Like,
yeah, because we actually
these
spent a lot
two
of time.
people talking about their life. We don't care about them. We just wanted to hear about The Expanse, and you're telling us we're not even going to hear that. Yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, sorry about that. In saying that, I will fix this problem, and I will watch The Expanse for our next episode.
How your internet here sucks.
It should be better now.
Is it? Look, is it good enough for us to do a live recording with like Google Hangout so that our face is on it as well? Because we got a request.
Oh, look, to be completely honest, this isn't really my fault. Like, I have the NBN already. I already have like one of the top tiers of the NBN. The NBN just sucks. I can't change that. I can't find someone that can give me a better product here.
Yeah, let's not go
Like,
there.
I would love to be able to have, no issues with really fast internet connection. I don't even mind paying for it. It's just I can't find one that gives me that.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like, hey guys, like in America, you know how you guys have that net neutrality vote thing coming up, but kind of be glad that you guys could talk to your your council members and tell them, hey, we want net neutrality. Because for us, when our government decided that they're not going to put any more money into the NBN system, and then instead of having fiber optics all the way to our house and instead just give us copper cables, we had no say in the matter. We didn't get to tell them, hey,
That's
no,
not good.
That's not, no.
That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Can you please not? No, we did not get that at all.
No.
So, anyway, so our...
Oh, yes. End of show. Yes, we gotta say our thing.
Yes. Do our spiel.
We have to do our thing. Oh, there's one extra thing that I haven't written on this,
Yeah.
which I kind of added you to on Facebook, and I'm not too sure whether you realize.
What?
I've made a trigger point page on Facebook.
Ah, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm not too familiar with the difference between pages and groups and normal account on Facebook, but I made a page on Facebook. Like, essentially, you can find, like, hopefully, we will post stuff on the page. Like, people could follow the page, and we'll tell them about things that are coming up. Like the fact that we went to watch this, the last 5 years. We posted it on there. We wanted people to go and watch the show, so I posted it up there. We told them ahead of time what we're going to do. Like, if we're going to be changing a topic or something, we'll put it up there. Peter should put stuff up there too, like pictures from his tough mother and stuff like that. You can do that, Peter. Yeah. So you can find us on Facebook at I think it was Triggerpoint FM. Like,
This is how great we are with it. It's like, I think that's our address. Maybe.
Hey, I it's not like I'm a Luddite or anything. It's just that Facebook for me has gone backseat on a lot of things. Yeah, I think you can find us if you type in Trigger Point Podcast. Yeah, it's under Trigger Point Podcast.
Okay.
You click in that. So I'll leave I'll put the... Oh, and the URL is facebook.com/triggerpointfm. I haven't been very consistent with that. Doesn't matter. I'll put a link on in the show notes. So, yep. How do you find us? You can find us on the website, triggerpointfm.com. triggerpointfm.com. Show notes is triggerpointfm.com/14. This is episode 14,
Yep.
Twitter, triggerpointfm. Email, triggerpointfm@gmail.com. As I said, you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us on YouTube, Triggerpoint Podcast. You can find me on Twitter. You could not find Peter on Twitter. Why don't you use Twitter?
Why use Twitter?
I don't even know how to answer that.
I don't even know where to begin.
So anyway, for next month, we will talk about The Expanse.
Yes.
And I think that's it.
That's pretty much it. So until then, see you everyone.
Bye.
Bye.